he said, I've seen a UFO up here. And he said, I've never seen, up until that time, never seen anything. And he said, I've never seen anything after. And he was getting his cattle in, I think he said it was mid-90s.
Right.
Summertime or late summer. And he was getting his cattle in, and he had his neighbour, who has a neighbouring property, who was helping him get the cattle in. And he said, had I not looked up, and he said, I don't know why I looked up, had I not looked up, he said, I would have never have seen it because there was just no noise.
As she's driving and getting close to her home, which is in Dalby Forest, she said something buzzed. She got a buzzing feeling inside her head, a fuzzy, buzzing feeling. She said, and she looked at the dog in the back, and he's not moved, so it's obviously not affected the dog. And as she rounds a corner, and she rounds this corner on a logging road and looks into the distance, and in the trees or over the trees there's a huge flying saucer, and she said it was absolutely huge. That's awesome in size.
Your classic disc.
What, flying saucer?
Flying saucer disc. And he said he could see it that clearly that he could notice there was no nuts and bolts or anything like that. It almost looked solid. No sound, but he said what he did notice, and he said, I'm not going to say there were lights, but he said it was very, very bright. And then he said it must have only been 3, 4, 5 seconds, and
it's gone.
Straight down the valley, away.
Today I'm in the forests of North Yorkshire with Chris, and we found ourselves talking about 2 UFO sightings that came from people local to the area. Historic sightings from people who'd got no interest prior to seeing something truly incredible. And that's the most amazing thing about these sightings. Hello everybody, welcome to Truth Proof, back in North Yorkshire. There's Chris again, look.
Hello.
And don't know where we're going to go with it or what we'll be talking about, but no doubt something will make it to the channel, so we'll keep you updated. Let's keep going. We're getting close to Logging Road now, aren't we? And
yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant day. So we'll move on. Look at that, a long road. So what do you think, people? We've talked about cryptids. Chris has talked about something described as looking like a bear running into a car. Talked about something described as looking like a bear putting its head through an edge and looking at 2 young lads. I've talked about something described as looking like a bear or an upright gorilla moving down a logging road, pacing some lads on mountain bikes. Bit of a pattern going off here, isn't there? There is really, isn't there?
There really does seem as though there's definitely something, isn't there? Let's face it.
Yeah.
What it is, who knows, but it's a strange going on.
You know, and that's how difficult it is. I mean, jumping well away from these forests and woodlands and getting onto cliff tops and speaking to fishermen. So what about these sightings of, we'll call them UFOs, UAPs, what about in daytime? Is it always at night?
And we've seen them for years and years and years. So a lot of anglers used to talk about in Brid angling.
Yeah.
So a lot of them will have seen it. Like, so it is a shame because I don't get to hear a lot of stories, as I say to you, but they just won't come forward and tell you about it for some reason.
Well, that's what it's like. If you're getting mining communities, fishing communities, they tend to keep themselves to themselves, don't they? If they can't trust
I've asked a few of them, and that's as far as it's got. They just
won't do it.
They talk about it in pub to themselves.
Yeah, to the friends.
To the friends and everything. Yeah. So.
But they won't share it.
They won't share it publicly, like. So.
What do you think? It's because of ridicule, or just the fact that they just don't want to do it?
I don't know. I'm still sort of frustrated at them lights sort of thorn every time I think about it. And I had my camera in my bag, like I have now.
Yeah.
My phone in my pocket, and I just never even thought to get them out and video it.
So you saw them first time, they switched off, you carried on fishing, and second time did you think, I'm calling it a night?
No, I said that, as I say, the lights came on and I just looked up and I thought, you know, what's that? There's no noise, no helicopter, all like that. And I thought, And they just stayed on, and I was mesmerised, really, just looking at them. And then they just turned off, like, just magic sort of.
Yeah.
And then I never thought now of it, I just sort of carried on fishing. And then a few minutes later, they just blinked some back on again.
The same spot?
In the same place. Never moved at all. Same position and everything. No noise, the same.
And they're off cliff, weren't they?
Yeah. And they stayed on again for at least, three minutes, maybe more.
Jeez.
And then they went off again, and I just thought, it's weird, is this? I just can't understand it. Like,
yeah.
You know. And then I've carried on fishing for another 5 minutes or so, but it was really poor, so I thought, bugger this, I'm going. Like.
And then
as I was coming off, they came back on again.
That's nuts, isn't it?
I could have drove round to the cliffs and got a better look at them, and I just didn't, I just thought, you're only talking 200 foot, if that, away from them.
Yeah, and there's 2 lights, and there were 2 lights. Set apart.
Yeah, set apart, probably 10 foot in between them. They were big lights, they were like the size of a car sort of thing.
Yeah.
So they were biggish lights, but yeah, it's just weird, really.
It's crazy.
And I have always been so frustrated that I never got my camera out. And
well, you've got some of them, I would say vast majority, they either don't talk about it, won't talk about it, flatly refuse to acknowledge that there's anything strange, and then you've got the others who are a little bit more open-minded, and some of them in elevated positions, especially one within Coast Guard who's a friend of mine, and he'll tell you about lots of things that all these who don't talk about it, won't talk about it, flat refuse, have seen. So, it's out there. And it might be a little bit different to being in a forest and a woodland, but it's still the unexplained. And that's why people are gravitating to Truth Proof and listening to people like myself, Chris, and other great channels, all of it UK and world. Because there's not just an interest in this subject, there's a reality to what we're talking about. When you've got people from all sections of society, you've got people from all over the world, all cultures, indigenous cultures, you have academics coming out and saying what they've seen, what they've experienced. You can deny it all you like, but the truth is, I've got to say it, Anna, the truth is out there. bit of a cliche that one, wasn't it? But it kind of worked.
Describes it perfectly though, doesn't it?
It does, Chris, yeah. When do you think you first became interested in cryptid phenomena?
I've always known of our local, the Flixton werewolf. It's always been there, even as a child you hear stories and it comes into the forefront, but really just since I've kind of got into the UFO stuff.
Yeah.
And then I think you just slowly merges into everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, you start talking about unexplained and one thing gravitates to another, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I don't think if somebody had said to me 10 years ago that I'd be walking about in a forest talking about things that people are describing as a bear but not a bear, they're just fitting it into a box called normal, and even a bear's not normal because we're in UK, aren't we? Let's face it. But 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer, I think I'd have dismissed any of what I'm talking about. And that's the reason I think we've all got to remain open-minded, because the possibilities are endless. And I quite envy Chris being able to access these forests literally, what do you think, 20 minutes from home, even that?
Well, 5-10 minutes for me really.
Yeah.
In the car obviously, but yeah, I mean it's great, and I've not only just got this forest. Say we've spoke about Raincliffe Woods, which is quite next part of the Forge Valley.
Yeah.
And then I've got Wycombe, Dalby, Crosscliff, there's and Harwood Dale. Brilliant. And
they're all kind of linked. They've just got roads running through them, obviously, but probably get to them all if you wanted, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, if you could. You wouldn't have to get on a mate. You could do it all cross country, and you could link them all together.
Yeah.
Quite easily, yeah.
So it's a little bit more open here, as we're not quite done yet, and I do believe that Chris might talk about a UFO that someone informed him of a few years ago, but we shall see. We'll pick this up in a moment. Okay everyone, so we're just about at the back end of our journey today, and where are we, Chris?
Just at the northern end of Broxa, looking over the Barnes Cliff Valley, which goes into Langdale End. Langdale End village is to our left. and then obviously up north towards Fylingdales to our right.
And you can see it's just an expanse of unpopulated land, or sparsely populated, isn't it?
Yeah. Farmsteads, that's your lot really.
So when we spoke earlier, because we were going to talk about the lads on the moped, and we were going to go to that location, which when you listen to this we'll have either done it or we're going to do it. You'll decide based on what you're going to listen to. Chris just dropped out into conversation that he had a UFO story that he could share with us. So, do you want to tell us?
Yes, I will, yeah, most definitely. So it was probably summertime last year when I spoke to one of the local farmers who has a farm within Crosscliff Forest, which is on the northern end of Dalby.
Right. So that's going to be right over there, is it?
Over this ridge here, and sort of looking up. We obviously can't see it, but the forest
miles away.
Beyond.
Miles away.
Maybe 3 miles.
3 miles, yeah.
And this gentleman at the time, obviously he'll be in his early to mid 70s now.
Right.
Lived up here the majority of his life, farmed up here the majority of his life, and I was working up there, and I just got chatting to him. And at first I was asking him about the big cats. Had he ever seen any? And he said he'd never seen them. Throughout his time here.
And did he know anybody that had?
He'd known of people that had seen them, so right. he knew of the stories and such like. And then just proceeded to say, he said, "Well, I will tell you one thing, lad." And he said, "I've seen a UFO up here." And he said, "I've never seen, up until that time, never seen anything." And he said, "I've never seen anything after." And he was getting his cattle in. I think he said it was mid-90s,
right,
summertime or late summer, and he was getting his cattle in, and he had his neighbour who has a neighbouring property who was helping him get the cattle in. And he said, had I not looked up, and he said, I don't know why I looked up, had I not looked up, he said, I would have never have seen it because there was just no noise. And what a lot of people say, he said, I was just getting this low hum.
Right, so he could almost feel it, maybe.
Feel the bassy hum. Yeah. And he said he looked up, and he said it was hard to gauge how far up, but he said it was below the valley, the height of the valley.
Oh, so as we're looking at this, and we'd go down into that valley.
Very similar to the size of this valley.
So obviously my hand's level with valley, and it's below, so people are getting an idea.
Maybe a couple of 100 foot, if
right.
that,
Yeah.
Your classic disc.
What, flying saucer?
Flying saucer disc. And he said he could see it that clearly that he could notice there was no nuts and bolts or anything like that. It almost looked solid. No sound, but he said what he did notice, and he said, I'm not going to say there were lights, but he said it was very, very bright lights that seemed to be zipping around it. Whether it was zipping or whether they were on and off, separate.
In sequence, just going around
really
it. Yeah.
Couldn't tell, but he said all different, every colour of the rainbow you could see, and his neighbour had seen it too, and he said they were just looking in awe at it. No sound, and then he said it must have only been 3, 4, 5 seconds, and it's
gone
straight down the valley away.
It's fascinating that, because there's that one at there's one from Cottam that's about 96, 97, right. And that's one at Farmers up there. I'll not say his name, but it don't make no difference. I'll not say his name, but he's the guy that followed that flying saucer through the wood, and he told me, he says, that wood's mine, and that had lights going all the way around it. There's one from Oliver's Mount, right. There's a flying saucer with lights all around it, mid-90s. So did he give you an indication at size?
He maybe did, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember.
No, it's no problem.
But it was obviously substantial enough for him to he said it was big enough,
Yeah.
We're maybe talking, I've no idea, of maybe 50 foot across,
yeah.
Foot across.
Do you know what's fascinating? All of that story is incredible, but what's fascinating is when you said that it's lower inside the valley. Yeah, it's lower down than the top of foot, aren't we? Yeah. 800. Yeah. Is it 800?
It's more or less about 800, yeah.
So we've got 800 foot, and chances are that one over there probably weren't as deep.
It's a similar size, if I'm honest. And
really?
Yeah, I would think it would be similar, yeah.
But just picture it, where my finger is now, and we're level with it, and we're looking at probably 700 or 800 foot here, definitely 800 towards that end, and imagine this thing
exactly.
there, and that kind of
It's almost impossible.
it puts it in perspective, and then you think to yourself, a farmer, and no disrespect to farmers, hard-working men that in his 70s,
yeah.
he's probably not even moved out of area. I don't mean he's not had a holiday or anything like that, but probably just born and bred in area and worked that farm all his life. And then he sees something that's so exotic, it must have rattled his mind a little bit, don't you think?
He said...
When he was telling you, what did he still see him in awe of it, or just normal?
Yeah. He said before that, he said, if I had not seen that, I wouldn't believe in UFOs.
No.
I've never seen anything before. He said, I know what I saw, and it was the most phenomenal thing ever. And he said, I've never seen anything since.
And that's 1990s.
Mid-90s, yeah.
When we ended up on the top of Silfo,
Yeah.
and we were doing some door knocking, talking about the Silfo saucer, the little UFO that's said to have landed on the moor back in 1957. We spoke to one gentleman who said he'd got a relative who, when he were in his late teens, he'd come every year in his break, in his holidays, but he'd sit for hours on a night looking down into the valley, and he swore he could see lights and strange orbs. Not necessarily what people would call UFOs or flying saucers, but he brought that story up, which I found fascinating. But that's not only one. You know, you've just brought that up, Chris, and I spoke to a lady early this year who's now in her 80s, and I went to her home because she wanted to tell me about a UFO that she'd seen in Dalby Forest in, I think it was 1987, and she said her husband were on a course, and so obviously she's on her own. There's a few cottages where she lives, but once again, look at this lot, people. It's just sparsely populated. There will be little groups of cottages, but there's nothing substantial round here, is there?
No.
So she'd been at her parents who lived about 35 minutes away, so somewhere else within these forests. Set off at about 10 o'clock at night back home with a dog in back seat at car. Husband's on a course, so he's not at home. As she's driving and getting close to her home, which is in Dalby Forest, she said something buzzed. She got a buzzing feeling inside her head, a fuzzy buzzing feeling. She said, and she looked at the dog in the back, and he's not moved, so it's obviously not affected the dog. And as she rounds a corner, and she rounds this corner on a logging road and looks into the distance, and in the trees or over the trees there's a huge flying saucer. And she said it was absolutely huge, awesome in size. And I'll give you an example in a moment why it was so big. She stopped the car and observed this object. She said, and it spit out, and that's the words that she used, at 45 degrees, a light, and then another light, and then another light. She said, and there's 5 lights come out of it. And I think she said there was yellow, red, green, white, and blue. And all those lights were as big as a bus. And they looked small compared to this object, which, just like Chris has described, had all lights going around the circumference. So she watched this. She said these lights sort of plopped out and then withdrew back into it in the same kind of sequence. She got home, rang the police, told the police what she'd seen, give them a detailed description. I think the police officer said, will you be going to bed shortly? She said, well, I can't sleep. And, you know, after this, she says, I'm sort of hyper alert kind of thing. It's not frightened her, but it's just got all her senses sort of on a high. She said within 10 minutes, RAF Fylingdales rang. They wanted to speak to her. She gave a detailed description of what she'd seen. I'll not say what the lady's job was, but she was more than capable of giving detailed descriptions. And one day I might do, but not at the moment. And she asked Fylingdales, she said, what was it? Was this a UFO? And all they would say to her was, well, it shouldn't have been there. So every question she asked, look, you've seen something and it's not something that we're aware of and it shouldn't have been there. That's what they kept saying to her. Phone goes down, she got no further with Fylingdales. You'd think that was it. So later in the night, she's sort of still buzzing from this. She's seen this object. She says, and at the bottom of her garden there was a meadow and then the forest in the distance. But not like what we're looking at here, Chris. Probably what, 3/4 of a mile to, if we got to the top of that?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe that. We're talking 400 or 500 yards to the forest, and she's in a kitchen, and she gets this buzzing, this fizzy, vibrating feeling in her head again. Instantly goes to the back door. It's back. It's over the trees. And she's watching it, she's watching this object. Now, I'm not sure if she said the same sequence of lights came out. I don't think they did. But she watched this object, not just for 4 or 5 minutes, she watched it for a substantial length of time. And then it just sort of zipped off and it were gone out over the trees and into the distance, and it's vanished. And just to stay with UFOs temporarily, you know, in 1990s, Tony Dodd, the police detective, I think he was retired when he were actively looking into UFOs. He spent years researching this area, all to do with UFO activity. Some of it to do with missing people as well, but we're not going to jump into that today. But a lot to do with UFO activity and the things seen. I mean, obviously the occupants of these craft have to have a vested interest in something to do with this ancient land. They've got to be, because there's hardly any people here. It can't be the people that they're interested in, so there's got to be something within the fabric of the land that they're interested in, and they're being seen in remote places. Just fabulous. Just look at this. I realise wind's going to be playing havoc with this camera, but it's got to be worth it, people, just to look at this. So I think look at that. Just put my hand on that. So I think we've done the UFO story. So from Truth Proof and myself and Chris, I'd like to say thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, and we'll catch you next time, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.